broadcast of Discuss the Chosen. And we do this every Wednesday night. Although actually tonight is going to be our last one until they release a new version of The Chosen. So I'm kind of thinking about shifting gears. And they have a whole series out called Drive Through Bible. I think it's called that. And Drive Through History. And it's free. You can find it on Freevee and also Prime. There are other places you can find it, and I think that we might just start going through some of those videos, and they're really good. I would encourage you to watch them, even if you don't participate in these discussions. So we're going to be probably doing that. We'll start that next week, and I will try to make sure I can get that information out to you where you can find it. I'll post that in the show notes on wherever this is being broadcast, and we can see how that will work out for us. But in the meantime, we're dealing with the final episode of season 4, and we're actually doing the last half of it because we weren't able to finish it last week. So let's go ahead and we'll get started with that right now. Hello, my friends. How are you doing tonight?
Yeah, good evening.
It's good to see y'all. You know, that we were just talking off camera about how the weather has shifted a little bit for us here. And so we're so very grateful for that. We got a little bit of cloud cover, a little mist, cooler temperatures. And so life is grand once again for a little while. You know. So,
do we get too cold?
Yeah. We never get really too cold compared to other places in the country.
But we get cold.
Oh yeah, of course. You know, I get cold. That's for sure. I just want to make sure that we're broadcasting to our various channels. Let me see. Yep, it looks like we are. So, okay. So let's go ahead and we'll get started with it. This episode, let me just give you a quick summary of it, is that this episode kind of picks up with the aftermath of Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead. Lazarus was a friend of Jesus's, and he had 2 sisters, Mary and Martha. And so Jesus resurrected him, or actually, I guess, the more proper term, probably he resuscitated him from the dead, because in the Christian theological sense is that the only person, and even up till now, the only person that's ever been resurrected from the dead is Jesus. And then finally at the end times is that all humanity will experience a resurrection. But some to life and others to exclusion from God's presence. So Lazarus was raised from the dead, and this is in the aftermath of that. Mary is, as we talked about last week, is that she planned a special way of expressing her love and devotion to Christ by planning to anoint him. We pick up with that here in this episode, and then we kind of go forward from there. So let's just go ahead and take our first question here, and it says that Jesus says, "A new command I give you, love one another as I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another." Throughout his life, Jesus didn't shy away from telling people things that they didn't want to hear. How should we think about the relationship between truth and love? Do those two things fit together? I see some heads nodding. Tell me a little bit about it, your thoughts. Don't make me come over there. Janice, tell me what you're thinking.
This is not real profound, but I'm just thinking, like you're supposed to speak the truth in love. And like if your friend is sitting there talking to you and has a big hunk of broccoli stuck on their tooth, just make fun of them like, oh, you look so dumb, but you just say, oh, just going to tell you, you got broccoli on your teeth so they could take it off.
Yeah. How about, would you rather have someone yell at you when you're in danger or just say, oh, excuse me? Sometimes, sometimes truth can be pretty harsh, even when we're speaking it in love. There's an urgency to it. That we live in a generation, or at least in a season of time in our culture, where people say, well, you have your truth and I have mine, But, and so kind of like there's a general belief that truth is always a private matter. But, what's true for you is not true for me. Well, that may be true at one sense. You might like chocolate ice cream and I might like vanilla. Okay, that's true. But it's not true in another sense. There are certain truths that are universal truths for everybody. We live in a time where, what type of truths, what categories of truths do people tend to think are just mere matters of opinion? Some big issue truths.
Morality.
Yeah,
What's
morality. Yeah. Right and wrong. And that, and of course we're in a very kind of hotly contested presidential race in our culture right now. And people say that you can't legislate morality. And I always say, well, what should you legislate if you're not going to legislate morality? Not killing people is a moral position. Protecting people's property and their and honoring contracts, all of that stuff's is a moral position. Now, not all law is moral, has a moral basis, but much of the law that is of any consequence does. So somebody is going to legislate their morality. What else other than morality do people tend to think is just a matter of opinion rather than a matter of fact? Any other big ideas, big categories?
Religion. Yeah. That I spoke
a little bit about this on Sunday, but somebody's right and somebody's wrong when it comes to religion. The atheist says there is no God. The Christian says there is. The Muslim says that God is Allah. The Buddhist is actually is uncommitted to the idea of God. Many Hindus say that there's many gods. Mormons believe that that ultimately you too can become a god. Yeah, that's what they really believe in their theology, but only if you're a man. Sorry, ladies, that it's just men who get to become gods according to Mormon theology. So not all of those positions can be right. That there's a law of logic that it's called the law of non-contradiction. And it's just part of the fabric of how our brains work. And something cannot be both A and non-A at the same time and in the same sense. So all of those religious claims cannot be true, So another one too that I've come to think more about even here recently is politics. Now we're not going to go down that path tonight, but I do believe that certain political systems and ideas and philosophies are more closely aligned to what's objectively true than others. And so so it seems like the big ideas that people oftentimes struggle with, morality, religion, politics, we like to think that those are just preferential claims. But so let's circle back to this thing about truth and love. That if there is a truth out there, remember the X-Files? Remember the catchphrase? Did you guys ever watch the X-Files?
Yep.
What was the catchphrase? Do you remember?
I'm trying to think.
It was.
Truth is out.
Yes, the truth is out there.
And I didn't watch it.
So what that means is that the truth is not just a matter of what you think. It's out there. And truth is to be discovered. Nobody invents the truth, which is an interesting concept. But so it's a matter of love to have difficult conversations with people about matters of truth. And Jesus, we like to think about this panty waist Jesus. People always kind of have this nice and little sweet Jesus. But he said a lot of things that irritated people, and to the point where they decided to kill him, And he wasn't just being belligerent. He was being loving. That's something to think about. So, okay. Oh, man. I prepare all of this stuff in advance, and I try to get everything positioned right. And I complain about this every week, and I don't know why it doesn't stick. I even lock it down in my program that I'm using, but nothing seems to work, so I'm just going to be exasperated. Mary's extravagant act of anointing Jesus with the perfume is almost like a litmus test, revealing what's in the hearts of those present. What does this say about Judas? There's a passage of scripture there. Nikki, are you going to be our reader tonight?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay. John 12:4. But one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, who was later to betray him, objected. Why wasn't this perfume sold and the money given to the poor? It was worth a year's wages. He did not say this because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. As a keeper of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put into it.
Yeah. So Mary's act revealed what was in Judas's heart. He really wasn't. And a lot of times religious people have a bunch of bluster, and why don't we do this, and so on and so forth. But it's really not, in this case, it wasn't because Judas cared about the poor. He just was annoyed that Mary was, and he tried to dress up his hypocrisy in fine religious clothing. How much was a year's wage? Well, here's a simple way to think about it. How much is a year's wage now? That's really, it's the same concept. The dollar value is inconsequential. Let's just say, and I'm just pulling a number out of the air, but let's just say a year's wage is $50,000. Now that, when you think about that, in that context. This is a wildly extravagant act on Mary's part. Do you think it was justified?
Yes.
Okay, why?
I think that's how she was expressing how much she loved him, and that was the way she was showing it.
Yeah.
She was showing that there was no cost too high that she wouldn't pay to show him that.
Critics often don't understand another person's devotion. So, and certainly Judas didn't get it. What was going on in Mary's heart? You touched on it, Nikki. Anybody else want to elaborate a little bit on it? Go ahead, Janice.
I don't want to elaborate on that, but I just wanted to point out, like when she opened that bottle on the video on the show, she opened the bottle. Everyone in the whole room kind of went, like it must have been super strong. And then she got like a bottle that was enough for a whole bunch of people. Like you get an ounce, and she got like, I don't know, 10 ounces or whatever. And I just think, wow, it must have really, really been strong in that room.
Must have been like old lady perfume.
I think it was more like men's perfume because
it was. Yeah, right. Lorene?
Well, I don't even think your question of was it justified. I don't even think that even matters.
Yeah.
Because,
right.
The widow's mite, she gave a penny, and it was she was all in, and Mary gave what was all in, and it was all about the honoring, not the cost.
Janice?
And Jesus defended her doing that. He was happy with it. He was appreciative of it. Like she's done this because she's showing her love for me and like preparing me for burial or whatever. Like he got it. No one else did, but he did.
Yeah. Yeah. So
even in the show, Jesus' mother Mary, she goes.
It was a little surprise there.
Her eyes were watering.
Yeah. It was incredible. So we kind of touched on Jesus' response to this. And Nikki, read those verses in verses 7 and 8.
Leave her alone, Jesus replied. It was intended that she should save this perfume for the day of my burial. You will always have the poor among you, but you will not always have me.
Yeah. I like that. Leave her alone. Yeah. So, all right. Here's another passage coming up, Nikki. It says, read John 12, 9 through 11. How could anyone get to the place where they thought murdering Lazarus would be okay? So read that.
Meanwhile, a large crowd of Jews found out that Jesus was there and came, not only because of him, but also to see Lazarus, whom he had raised from the dead. So the chief priests made plans to kill Lazarus as well, for on account of him, many of the Jews were going over to Jesus and believing in him.
So, how could anyone get to that place where they could justify? Janice?
All I can think is that they're going to try to say then that he wasn't raised from the dead. That didn't count.
Yeah. There's one part where in the meal scene with Pilate and Herod and their various women, where Pilate's wife, they said, well, we could just kill him. Somebody at the table said, well, they could just kill him again. And she said, well, he could just raise him from the dead again. Lorraine?
Yeah, I think Lazarus was the proof. Like they tried to explain away like all the other miracles and stuff. And they even tried to explain away Lazarus, but those people that were there knew it.
Yeah.
They knew it from their own eyeballs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he was the proof. And I think people for ages have killed other people to cover up their own mistakes or cover up what. I don't think this is anything new. I think people have been doing it for eons. Well, yeah, forever.
Yeah. One of the things that I've discovered in doing ministry is that people are going to believe what they want to believe.
Mm-hmm.
And you can offer a very reasoned or impassioned, effort to change their minds, but people are going to believe what they want to believe. And these guys, they had a vested interest. That they were the guys who were in the seat of power,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't want to move over for Jesus or nobody. So,
or lose their power.
Yeah. So in the show, when speaking about the Jews, Pilate's wife said to Joanna, Do you believe in anything so much? Then she adds, What if it cost you something dear? Would you believe it then? What are some of the sacrifices that ordinary Christians, and I'm not talking about people who are martyrs or anything like that, but what are some of the sacrifices that ordinary Christians make when following Jesus? Go ahead, Nikki.
Loss of friends.
Yeah. Have you ever experienced that?
Yeah, at a job.
Yeah, I know. When I first became a Christian, that all my old party buddies did not want to hang out with me anymore. So and that was hard. But yeah. What else might ordinary Christians lose?
Family.
Yeah. How about for you? Was that ever an experience for you, Lorene?
No, I had a hard time with this because I came to the Lord so early in my background.
Mm-hmm.
And I just never thought of giving up, that I had to give anything up. I knew there was stuff in my life that I needed to change.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel like there was some huge sacrifice that I gave.
Mm-hmm.
Now maybe that's coming. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a hard time with this question because I don't know if I've really sacrificed much to follow the Lord. It's always part of my life. It's something I've always wanted to do. Yeah, maybe I just don't think of it as sacrifice. Maybe that's the difference. I don't know.
Well, there was a time in your life when you went through a struggle with employment at a church, and because you held on to what you thought was right, that
that is true. But even that, in retrospect, is like, I don't know. It was good. It was good that it happened. Personally, it's what I needed to get out of there. Like, I should have gotten out sooner, but I don't know. The way it all came down, it was. I see it as being a good thing for me because it got me out, and I think I had the tendency, in a sense, to buy into that side of things, and I'm so glad I didn't. I clearly that it just came in little compromises, and I could see myself becoming like that. And I'm so glad that God just pulled me out of there, even though it was hard. You know, it was, I'm glad. I'm glad for it all. So
Yeah, yeah. Anybody else? What are some sacrifices that ordinary Christians make when following Jesus? Popularity. Yeah. Janice?
You know, yeah, to people who aren't Christians, probably you're giving up like fun, you know, things that the world would say are the fun things to do that, you know, you choose not to do because you're following Jesus. Or maybe your goals aren't the same. Like you're not thinking, well, I just want to make a lot of money,
Yeah.
or want to get, you know, fame or something like that, as much as I'm like with Lorene. I mean, I'm like giving it up or anything. You know, it's just the way I want, that I've always wanted to live my life. You know,
Lorene?
but I have heard a lot of people say that if I become a Christian, I have to give up. Like I have to give up this and that and this and that. I know, Kerry, you preached a sermon not too long ago, and I loved it. It was all the things you got. Like we don't talk about those things that you get when you. We only talk about the things you have to give up, and I think out there in the world, it's what you have to give up.
Yeah.
Instead of what you're going to get for it, you know.
Yeah. So, anyone else? So, okay. Let's see where this one ends up. Oh, there it is, right where it's supposed to be. So, Jesus gives his disciples instructions to bring him a colt. Read Zechariah 9:9. Now, Nikki, are you going to be able to find Zechariah 9:9?
Yep.
Okay, good. It's just a Bible drill.
Rejoice greatly, daughter Zion. Shout, daughter Jerusalem. See, your king comes to you, righteous and victorious, lowly and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey.
Yeah. Now, I can't remember when Zechariah was written, but I know that it was written hundreds of years before Jesus came on the scene. So this is considered, even today, little interesting story, that back in, I think it was the 1967 Yom Kippur War, I think it was, that when and I wasn't working at the university back in 1967, but one of my colleagues at the University of California, that he was a world-renowned expert in refrigeration, and he was a Jewish man and traveled the world and helping people set up refrigeration systems or whatever. But he was also very devout in his Jewish faith. And he said that what he did during that war is that he and his buddies found a donkey, and they took it and they untied it and they took it to the Eastern Gate where the Messiah is supposed to come through, and tied it up there at the Eastern Gate, kind of representing that the Messiah has come.
Wow.
And so, of course, the Eastern Gate is completely sealed up now, and it's in a there's a cemetery that is directly in front of it, but he tied up that donkey there to kind of like give the impression that Zechariah 9:9 had been fulfilled. So even today, devout Jews believe that the Messiah will come on the colt of a donkey. So Jesus knew exactly what he was doing when he rode into Jerusalem on the colt of a donkey. How was this dramatic gesture not only to the crowds, but how was this a dramatic gesture, not only to the crowds, but also to the religious leaders? So what's he saying, Janice?
That he's the fulfillment of the prophecy.
Yeah, there are a few occasions that we find in the Gospels that when Jesus just comes right out and he makes very bold moves or makes very bold statements that are undeniable. And this, what Christians call the triumphal entry, which occurs 1 week before Jesus' death. He rides into Jerusalem, and people are shouting, Hosanna, and it's a big event. And so Jesus is making a very public statement. Hey, folks, I'm the Messiah. I've come home. So, okay, let's do number 13. I really liked this, by the way, when I was preparing for our discussion tonight. So read Luke 8:3. Joanna did what she could do to promote Jesus' ministry. So go ahead and read that, Nikki.
Okay. Joanna, the wife of Chuza, the manager of Herod's household, Susanna, and many others. These women were helping to support them out of their own means.
Okay, so Joanna was a woman of quite a bit of status in that time. Now, the creators of the show kind of play it off that her marriage to Chuza was estranged or difficult or complicated, and that. But she was a woman who was she had access to the royal court, Herod's royal court, there in Jerusalem. But also there was something about Jesus that caught her eye and caught her heart. And so she began financing his ministry. Now, we're jumping ahead, but later in the story, we discover that Joanna is one of the women who witnessed the resurrection. Now read Luke 24, verses 9 and 10, please.
When they came back from the tomb, they told all these things to the 11 and to all the others. It was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the others with them who told this to the apostles.
Yeah. Now, I was really touched by this. Matter of fact, I'm also going to be preaching just a little bit about it this Sunday. But Joanna doesn't play a starring role in the Christian story, but she plays a very significant role. And I think that that's true for each one of us, is that you may not play a starring role in the Christian story, but how does your life take on new significance when you follow Jesus? Nikki.
Every little part you do is important. That all the little things you do for the kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't really thought about it before you said it like that, but every little act of kindness, everything you do for your brother, every little thing, whether it's seen, especially if it's not seen, you don't want it to be seen, is important.
Yeah. Remember, there's that passage, actually, they depicted it in this episode, where Jesus, it's earlier on in the episode when Jesus is at table with the disciples, and the two Jewish authorities come in with that other guy. I can't remember who they were. I know one is Shmuel and the other one is, who's the other guy? I can't remember his name. He's kind of like the guy who likes Jesus.
Yusuf.
Yeah, Yusuf. Yeah. So, but at that time, Jesus tells the story about the coming of the Son of Man, and how that you fed me and you clothed me and you visited me in prison. And people will say, well, when did we do this? And he says, well, whenever you did it to the least of these, you did it also to me. You know. So Nikki is right in that it's this accumulation of things that we do, not because we're so good, but because Christ has gotten a hold of us and has changed our heart. And we want to bring a little bit of light to other people's lives along the way. Lorene.
Yeah, and with Joanna, like, could Jesus's ministry have gone on without her contribution? Yes, it would have. But her part was what the part she was supposed to put in. And yes, things could have happened without her, but she did what was God was leading her to do. And I feel that, like, with my own self, is like, I don't have a starring role. I never have. But the part I play, it's important for me to be a praying grandma right now. It's just like super important. Will my grandkids be okay without my prayers? Yes, I believe that. But there's something to me doing it that just, it's my part to play right now. It's what I want. I don't want to miss this opportunity. I want to be part of this.
Well, I'm not so sure that they would be okay without your prayers, you know.
I'm not the only one praying, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, okay.
But you know, but for me, this is what I'm supposed to do. I better do it. I want to do it. I don't miss it. I want to be. So to me, it's important that I do what I have to do, and I have to do the best I can do. Do I do it perfect? No. Do I follow? Yeah, I forget sometimes. But I want to do the best I can do with what I have.
Yeah. Janice.
And even though the Bible might not say anything more about her, she may not have known, and we don't know the impact that she may have had on other people. You know, she's in a class that other people that might not have come to Jesus if they hadn't seen how she did. You know what I'm saying? You know, you don't know how many people she influenced. I mean, they must have seen her, you know, at the cross, or, you know, like at the tomb or whatever, you know.
Yeah. I'm thinking of a stained glass window. And, you know, both Janice and I, many years ago, we had an opportunity when I was traveling for the university. We visited different places in Europe, and some of the cathedrals in Europe are just incredible. And that and the stained glass windows are so majestic and beautiful. And I'm thinking, what if there was a piece of that glass that was missing? You know, not the whole thing, but just the piece of the glass was missing. That it would take away from the beauty of the art. And that's the same with this magnificent story that we get to participate in, is that your little piece that you bring to the puzzle contributes to the overall glory of what God is doing. So, Janice.
And I think that God speaks about that in the New Testament, even when he tells us that we're all a part of a body. You know, we may not all be the brain or the heart or whatever. You might be the foot or the hand, but we all have a part to contribute. And without us, it's not going to be, just like you said, it wouldn't be the same.
Yeah. Nobody's a wart. Nikki.
I was thinking, we're saying, you know, she didn't have a starring role, but she did get mentioned in the Bible for that small part. So he wanted to get that point across to us, that look, at this part is important, even though it doesn't seem like a huge thing.
It was a major breakthrough for me, and I know that sometimes these these minor things may not seem that significant. But I remember many years ago when it dawned on me that people are God's program, that God works through people. Not sure, there are rare exceptions when God intervenes in human history directly. But time after time after time, it's a person that God works through. And so, Joanna's she's just a wonderful ray of light. And maybe one of these days we'll get to meet her. That'd be cool. So, all right.
Do you guys think about that? About
What's
all
that?
the people you're going to meet, like all the people in the Bible? Do you ever think, we're going to be face to face with Jesus, and we're going to see Peter, and we're going to see Mary? Do you ever think about that?
All the
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, I heard a Christian scholar talking about this, is that we're going to have infinity. Mm-hmm. So there'll be plenty of time to get around, to meeting people, Janice.
It's a good thing, because I bet you the line to go see Peter is going to be really, really long.
John the Baptist.
Yeah. I really, and it's not because it's psychologically satisfying that Christianity is true, but because Christianity is true, it's psychologically satisfying. Now, Janice and I, we have a lot of conversations about this, and Janice has told me many times over the last few years, this is not my favorite season in life. Is that when you're young, you kind of have this sense of writing your story and how it's going to turn out, and the things, the great and good things that you're going to accumulate. And when you're old, what happens is you start releasing those, and and particularly one of the things, I was talking to Janice last Saturday. I said, what's really hard for me is that my capacity for work isn't as great as what it used to be. I can go out and do some stuff, and I'm at the place where I now have created my chore list, and if I can get one thing done on it, that's a win. And before, I could go through, and Janice can tell you about all the time she used to clean the house in a single day and all of that stuff. Not so much anymore, So, but the point of this is this. The point of that is this, is that life chips away at you. Mm. And that if this is what life shapes up at the end, it would be horribly depressing.
True. So true.
But if we, like I said, it's not because it's psychologically satisfying that Christianity is true. It's true, and therefore it's psychologically satisfying. And the fact that we got a whole bunch of living yet to do, man, that is so cool, really, to think about, See. Okay. I don't know where I'm at. Well, we did that one. Let's see. Oh, this is where we're at. Just a couple more, and then we'll wrap up. Is that read what Simeon said to Mary when Jesus was presented in the temple as an infant. This is Luke chapter 2, verse 35. So go ahead and read that for us, please.
So that the thoughts of many hearts will be revealed, and a sword will pierce your own soul too.
Yeah, so Simeon is talking about the impact that Jesus is going to have on people, and that the thoughts of many hearts will be revealed. But he says also a sword is going to pierce your own heart too. What do you think it was like for Jesus' mother to witness these events unfold leading up to the crucifixion? Janice.
I was just thinking about, the bridal that they had.
Yeah.
And they, Mary, like she knew he was going to need it that day. And so she goes and gets his backpack and they take the box out, and they talk about it. Right. And she's saying, even Jesus said, Joseph can't be with us, but we're doing this today. This is our tradition to include him. I was thinking about that. Mary kind of knew a little bit about what was going to happen. She knew that she gave birth to the Son of God. But she probably, she never probably know that she was going to have to face all this with her son without her husband.
Yeah.
On her own.
And and even at that, and while you were talking, it just dawned on me, is that a lot of times parents die before their kids do. But Mary knew that it wasn't going to be this way. That she was going to watch. She wasn't just going to outlive her child, her son, but she was going to watch him die. And there was nothing.
Horrific death.
Yeah. There was nothing that she could do about that. Lorene.
Yeah, I love how they show that relationship with Jesus, because of all the people in the whole wide world, Mary is the one who, she knew that child was from God. She knew all along. She knew that something was going to happen to him. She knew all of that. But God was good to her, I think, all through her life. But God still didn't spare her from that broken heart.
Yeah.
She still had that sword pierced through her, as no mother wants to see her child die. No mother does.
No. Yeah. Janice.
And I don't know, maybe you could tell us, because I don't know if it says in the Bible all about this or not. I don't remember reading it, but I know that some of the her sons didn't believe that Jesus was the Messiah. And I would think that if that were the case, they probably weren't there to support her much either.
Yeah. There's at least there's an inference that we can draw from that, because when Jesus is being crucified, that Jesus assigns John the care of Mary. And so, and even though Jesus had, when we read the scriptures, we see that Jesus had other brothers and sisters. One passage that comes to my mind real quick is John 7, I believe it is. And let's see. In John 7, verses 3 through 5, it says, and Jesus' brothers said to him, leave here and go to Judea, where your followers can see your miracles. They're being sarcastic there. It says, you can't become famous if you hide like this. If you can do such wonderful things, go show yourself to the world. And then verse 5 says, for even his own brothers did not believe in him. So all that is about to change. Not all of his brothers, to our knowledge, become Christians, but 2 of them do, and actually 2 of them end up writing books in the New Testament. We'll talk about that later. So, final question for tonight is that Jesus declares his love So as he's starting off on this journey into Jerusalem, he declares his love for and devotion to his disciples, even though they were all broken people with many flaws. How does that make you feel about your own standing before Christ? So he's just telling these guys, hey man, I'm devoted to you, I love you, and I'll love you till the end. But all of them, it's one of the great things about the Chosen, we see that all of them had extreme, just a whole mess of flaws. So how does that make you feel about your own standing before Christ? Janice?
I'm just so happy and thankful that my salvation isn't dependent on what I do, because I make it. Yep.
You'd be in a heap of trouble.
Yeah, I'd be.
So, and Lorene?
Yeah, this was one of my favorite parts. Is when everybody's standing over, and Jesus is like looking at them, and the actor, he does such a good job. He just looked at each of them with so much love, and I, man, that is the kind of love God has for me. That same love, even though I'm part of that motley crew.
Yeah.
Full of flaws, that He loves me. It brought me.
Yeah. Yeah. It was great. Well, guys, let's go ahead and we'll wrap up for tonight. Thank you for participating. I'm going to post the links to our upcoming study, and we'll be going through that as much as we can before the next episode of The Chosen is released. Janice?
We will not be in town on Wednesday.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So, you just announced it to the whole world. So, all right. So, well, we will. So next week we won't meet, but then the week after that we will. So, okay. So let me go ahead and we will wrap this thing up for tonight. Thank you guys once again for coming out, and yeah, Val is doing his Hollywood Squares thing. So, okay, thanks again, guys. Oops, that's not it. That was not the sermon that I'm preaching coming up. Let me just go ahead and take that one off. So, we meet every Sunday at 10 o'clock on the channels that you're watching us on. And so I hope that you'll be able to join us this coming Sunday. I'm going to be talking about your place. Let's see, I can't remember the exact title, but that your place in God's kingdom. I mean, here again, it's one of those things. I really, what I like to do is, obviously, I like to preach the scriptures, but I also like to preach the scriptures from the standpoint of how that, whatever insights and inspiration or blessing that they bring to me. And as I was going through, preparing for this message, that I'm looking forward to sharing it with you. So I hope to see you again here soon. And we will share with you what our next study will be.